Okay, awesome. So we have just opened up the webinar for everybody. So thank you so much, everyone and we are live on social media platforms also. Okay, so it's 3 p.m. Singapore time. And one of the things really we pride ourselves on is starting events on time and finishing on time. So exactly, we started on time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We'll have some friends who are live with us on Zoom, and some people will be watching it on various social media platforms of Wadwani Foundation and on eChai's platforms. So those of you, in case if you have any question during the session, you can ask in the comments. We'll take up those questions in the second half. I'm Jatin. I'm one of the co-founder of eChai Network. We host engaging startup networking meetups in 25 global cities in 15 countries. This particular panel is part of our CoRise Southeast Asia Summit, which we are co-organizing with Wadwani Foundation and TIP Network, which is based in Philippines. So Krish and Cheryl, thank you so much for being the co-organizers. And I keep on repeating this thing, but I'll repeat again because this is a very important piece. These events are possible because awesome speakers accept our invites to commit that time to interact with all our participants. And thank you so much for that. Cheryl, if you can just briefly tell us about what you do, and then Krish, you tell us about Wadwani Foundation, and we have a lot of questions which we'll ask Monica about Wadwani Foundation. Yes. Cheryl.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. I am Cheryl Arenas, the project lead of the Technological Institute of the Philippines Nurture Innovation Technology Revolution Office, or TIP Nitro. It is a collaborative, friendly, university-based technology business incubator, and we are one of the 48 TBIs funded by our DOST. So we promote and support innovation all the way to commercialization by providing a range of resources, services, and facilities during the development stage of the venture. And we organize also speakers series like this and workshops to support budding entrepreneurs in our community, including mentorship, opportunity for networking, and partnership to support our incubatees and the whole TIP community. So right now, our incubatees are in clean technology, laundry delivery, furniture industry, SaaS, fintech, and healthcare. So good afternoon, everyone, and I hope this event will foster more collaboration within the region. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Chris, if you can tell us a little more about
Wadwani. Good afternoon, guys. I'm Chris Delgado. I'm the Senior Program Manager of Wadwani Foundation in the Philippines. We are a nonprofit working globally across 24 countries in 3 regions in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Much of our work are really focused on job creation and job fulfillment through entrepreneurship, innovation, and skilling. No? And more of that details will be done by my boss. Monica is here with us this afternoon. So Monica can expound more on how we are impacting the ecosystem with our end-to-end support to startups. No? So we're very, very happy. We are on the second to the last session of our 2-day summit, and we had very good feedback from our students, from our partners, no? And they've learned a lot from you guys, similar to very young founders. And I think altogether we're inspiring a lot of the ecosystem movers. So we're very, very happy to work with Jatin on this, and we look forward to a very productive and meaningful discussion with you. All the best.
Thank you so much, Chris. And if this was a physical event, but we will do it online, we'll clap for all the speakers. And so the format is going to be each of the speaker will be introducing about them, about their background, and we'll just get to the discussions. So Johnson, if you can tell us a little more about you, from where you are live, and about your work. Yes, Johnson.
All right. Thank you. Hi, I'm Johnson Lam. I'm the founder of Kaki DIY. I'm from Malaysia, currently in Kuala Lumpur. So Kaki DIY, basically, it's a community started online where we actually encourage and inspire, incubate people who loves to do DIY of all kinds. So a lot of people think like DIY means like, oh, I open up the box and I put up a furniture myself. That's DIY, right? Well, yes, that's also part of a DIY. There are also other type of DIY, like, you know, from cooking to technology, to drones, to even upcycling and recycling or diagnosing and repairing stuff. However, end of the day, why people do DIY is because we want to solve a particular problem. That's what entrepreneurs are, right? That's how startups are born, because there's a problem to be solved. You build up a company, you build up a system to solve it, right? So yes, so what we do in Kaki DIY, other than all that, of course, we focus a lot on content and also bringing people together, matching entrepreneurs with whether it's SMEs or ecosystems or government agencies to be able to, you know, have all these, you know, brilliant people working together with another group of brilliant people, looking at what type of problems there is and solve it. Yeah. So we are basically mostly running online these days, okay, because of COVID. But before that as well, okay, most of our connections or meetings and all that, we run it online. Our physical presence is mostly just in co-working spaces and maker spaces, because end of the day, you want to build stuff, we gather up together, right? So yes, I'm really happy to be part of this, and thank you for welcoming me here. And well, let's
Thank you
have a
so
good
much, Johnson.
conversation.
Shweta, if you can briefly introduce about your background and your work.
Yeah, hi, I'm Shweta Rao. I'm based in Singapore right now. So I'm an angel investor, have invested for more than 35, 40 startups now, mainly in the areas of fintech, some gaming companies, couple of D2C brands, and also consumer tech. I'm from a technology background. I've spent more than 2 decades into data analytics space and worked with corporates and startups, and have tried my hands at startup as well. So yeah, so I come in the very early stage and pre-series A kind of a round. Um, Most of my investments are in India. So I would say like 80-90% are in India, and now have expanding more into Southeast Asia. I have invested in 3 startups this year into Southeast Asia, and 3 startups in US. So yeah, this year has been more global, and thanks to COVID, I think that things were more reachable, right? So people could access different regions, different things, which more easily, which we didn't do it earlier so easily. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Shweta. Chris, if you can briefly introduce about you, about your work.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I know I don't sound Filipino, but I'm actually Filipino. So I grew up in Australia, but I've been working overseas. So 6 years in Singapore, 4 years in New York, and 10 years in Silicon Valley. I'm in lockdown here in Sydney. Before COVID, I was back and forth to Silicon Valley. 60% of my time in Silicon Valley, 40% time here in Sydney. Basically, the last 7 years, I've been running programs, my own programs, working with startups. I've mentored maybe 500 plus startups. One of the first mentors at Google Launchpad, worked very closely with them, still do. I ran 100 plus of my own accelerator programs, immersion programs in Silicon Valley, worked with partners from 20 countries around the world. And what I found is that, you always do these one-off programs here and there, support startups. But the key is, how do we support from a sustainability standpoint? Throughout the startup's journey, it's not just a 3-month journey. It could be from a year, 10 years, whatever it may be. So what we've done is I developed an online mentorship platform 2 years ago. And I have 150 plus mentors from Silicon Valley at the moment. These are mentors that I've been working with throughout those 7 years. We have templates, we have webinars, we have all that good stuff. But we believe that, an expert's, someone who's been there, done that, their hindsight could potentially be the startup's foresight, the founder's foresight. So we try to support any entrepreneur around the world because it's an online platform.
Yep. Thank you so much, Chris. Monica, if you can briefly introduce, give your background and, of course, about Wadwani Foundation.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jatin. So my past background has been in PE and VC. I was part of a startup fund that was focused on education in India, Kaizen Private Equity. As a partner, I moved over to Omidyar Network, where I again led their education investments for India and Southeast Asia. I moved over to Wadwani Foundation last year in June, so I've been around for about 1.5 years. At the foundation, I lead the National Entrepreneurship Network, which is our flagship program that was started about 15 to 16 years ago, largely focused on developing and delivering entrepreneurship courses to students. So earlier we were focused on college students, but we've now moved on from there, and we've also have digitized programs that are meant for graduates and professionals as well that want to undertake the entrepreneurship journey. So as a mission and vision for our foundation, we want to think of ourselves as enablers for jobs at scale and creating livelihoods. And towards that end, we have several different initiatives, National Entrepreneurship Network being one of them. So our intention is to support campus ventures, early stage ventures that are coming out of colleges, hoping that we can inspire some students to become job creators as opposed to job seekers. Therefore, we run these courses in colleges, entrepreneurship courses. We're a non-for-profit, so there is no commercial exchange. But our intention is to run these courses in colleges so that we can inspire students, towards entrepreneurship. We help them to start a venture, and through the foundation and advanced courses we have, they'll ending up with a real venture at the end of it. And we have a lot of 360-degree support, very similar to what Chris was saying earlier, a lot of masterclasses, mentorship through our Advantage app. We have, pitch sessions and pitch days. We have open hours for our students. And we also have somebody that leads the funding and ecosystem space for us. So we have a lot of partnerships. It could be AWS, it could be Razorpay, PayU. I mean, things that can support our startups. And we also have a lot of campus funds that have supported us and continue to support us in terms of funding our ventures that come out. So we were, like Chris mentioned, we're in about 19 countries. And we tend to do this work in emerging economies. So in Southeast Asia, we're in Philippines and Indonesia. Of course, India is our home base. We are in several countries in Latin America, Chile, Peru, Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. And then in Africa, we're again in East, West Africa, South Africa, and we run programs in Egypt as well. So we're pretty diverse in what we do. And yes, our aim is just to keep supporting startups, not only in India, but globally.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. Stanley, if you can briefly introduce about you.
Yes, hi, Stanley Ng here. I'm the program director for New Energy Nexus. So New Energy Nexus, we're originally from California. We're an accelerator focused on promoting clean tech, clean energy startups and entrepreneurs. And thanks, Monica, for your great introduction for Wadwani Foundation. New Energy Nexus pretty much does the same thing, but specifically focused on the energy sector. And we focus on not only clean energy generation like solar companies, but also energy efficiency, electric vehicles, energy access. There's a lot of interest nowadays with energy storage and how that enables all of these other technologies as well. So not only do we work with younger teams like universities and students and researchers that are coming out of the labs, but we work with larger and more mature startups as well for international expansion. Especially for Southeast Asia, we see this to be like a large market opportunity. And we've been bringing in international, more mature companies to kind of jumpstart some of these energy technologies and energy business models out here as well. So that's the area we focus on, and would love to talk more about how we can work together.
Thank you so much, Stanley. So we'll get started. So one of the things we will do towards the second half of the session, and which we had done at all our panels, is that panelists ask questions to each other. So we want to know what they would want to know from each other, but that we will take after a couple of rounds of questions. So we'll start with Krish. So there are a lot of global startup support programs by corporates or a lot of investors. So as a startup, sometimes there are so many programs. So which program is right for me? How should they approach this? According to you, what are the things that they should take care so that they align themselves with the right set of programs? Chris.
I think there's two Chris's here.
So for the panel, you will be that Chris that I'll be asking questions.
Oh, so me. Oh, sorry.
The Silicon HQ guy.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it really depends on their stage. I think we focus very on early stage startups. We have 3 programs at the moment. One is, some educational webinar sessions. We just want to get some exposure of what we have available in terms of expertise. So today, for instance, we had our healthcare expert who's had 26 years in pharmaceutical. He was leading a task force at COVID for the US government. And we had an amazing 1.5-hour session talking about COVID, what's life look like after COVID, and there was tons of questions around that. So I think one is really the educational piece. There's a lot of expertise, not just in Silicon Valley, but around the world, right? I'm just using Silicon Valley because that's where I was running all my programs and that's where my connectivity is. But India, Philippines, Israel, I've got connectivity, Australia, there's a lot of expertise everywhere. So I think the first thing is really education. So we have a bunch of webinars. The second is everyone's raising money. So we have a Investor Ready Bootcamp. So our next one's on the 15th of January. It's a 4-day bootcamp. And one of the partners that is running it, Ido, his last startup exited to Google, and I invested in his company. So he's also a good friend and a portfolio. And, he'll give tips and tricks, and how to get ready for rolling closing, all the nuances of getting ready for fundraising. After that, then we have programs like Shark Tank type of sessions where we select 10 startups to pitch to a panel of Silicon Valley investors. So it's typical, Silicon Valley, and a lot of programs have this. So we have education, the fundraising aspect. And the third one is, again, back to the sustainability. Because we have an online platform, anyone can connect to mentors and experts whenever they want or need support. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So it's not just limited to people that are in Silicon Valley or who have the connectivity. Anyone can get connected. And that's what we want to do. We want to help as many entrepreneurs as possible. Right. We don't have the secrets yet. We don't know. And we love to collaborate with everyone on this panel because everyone's fantastic. I think everyone's doing some amazing things. So, but yeah, we've launched in Africa Valley, APAC Valley, LATAM. So we're focusing on emerging markets. I love to work with Monica and Chris together on initiatives there. We can bring in some programs. You can bring in some programs. But so back to your question, I think it really depends on the startup, what they're interested in. And we go to those local markets and we figure out what are the needs locally. We work with our partner locally, and we're just the back end, right? No one knows who all my other companies are, like Zone 3, Manila Valley, Silicon Valley headquarters. We're really in the background, trying to help the startups.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Monica, the question is to you. You were with Omidyar, now with Wadwani Foundation. So there are a lot of good startup support programs, they come up. A lot of startups would apply, but sometimes they are not able to maximize that potential of that. So according to you, what startups should take care so that if they join a support program, they can do really well, they can maximize their potential? What do you advise startups in that context?
Sure. I think similar to what Chris said, it depends on the stage of the startup, right? Not all programs are geared towards all startups. And not all programs are geared towards all sectors of startups. I think earlier Stanley was talking about how they are focused on a certain sector like energy, right? So I think it's important to do your research and understand which organization that has programs to support startups might be the most apt one, right? In our case, for example, like I said, we have the foundation and the advanced course, but those are courses we run through colleges. So if you don't happen to be in a college, we have digitized programs, which is a direct to student or a direct to professional program. And there we do partner with the TIP Nitros of the world, but we also do have students directly coming to us. And we have a very strong, we call it a social quotient test, but it in a sense is a filtration test. Because we want to make sure that we set them up for success. And to set them up for success, we have to make sure that we filter out for the right candidates for our program. And I'm sure most people do that. But similarly, startups need to do their research as well. It's a two-way process, right? I'm sure organizations filter out for the right kind of candidates, knowing what kind of program they have and what kind of candidates would be best supported through their program. And on the other hand, I think startups should do the kind of research to know what stage they are, what kind of stage various organizations are giving support at, and what are the areas they are most needing support in, and whether those programs will be the right fit. So it's all about the right fit. I don't think there's any one right or wrong organization for a right or wrong startup. It's just about having the right fit.
Yep. And Shweta, angel investors play a very important role in this entire value chain, because even if you have an amazing program, you'll have to say that we are bringing amazing investors at some point in our journey. So, and you have also invested in 30, 40 startups. So in your experience, what are the mistakes in the startups who don't receive funding? What are the mistakes they end up making, or the guys who end up raising funds? What are the things they really do well on both the sides? What would you advise?
So, to do well, I will start with. So sometimes some startups actually have developed a beautiful deck. They have a good reference. They have a great competitive analysis, because that becomes so important for anybody to understand the market. They have done a market research. They provide you all the data if they know that you might not be from that sector, and when you look at the deck and the kind of attachment they send you, realize that they've done enough research on you. They know which area you invest in and where you might need data for you to make a decision. So some of these founders really do a fantastic job in sending out the information, which will help. One is expediting the decision, right? Because typically what happens, a tech is sent, there could be so many emails, right? So you get some deck, you do your research, you try and understand what does the competition look like, is it crowded market, which area they are looking at. So all those, some of them are doing really good job at it. And sometimes I just get an email saying that I have an idea, will you talk to me, and I want to start with it. uh, I really would love to do that, but I have only that much bandwidth, right? So when I'm getting like so many emails in a day, uh, it really gets pushed back, right? So I think as a founder, do your research on investor, give them enough information so that they can make a decision. And referrals work really well, right? So you can obviously reach through LinkedIn, and there are times when startup really struggle to get a referral, but referrals work well. So if you know, do your research. Sometimes what happens is on a LinkedIn itself, you know that this person is connected to this, and then you can actually reach out and come. It just brings you up in the ladder. I mean, it's sometimes I feel it's not right to say, but that's how it is, right? Because you get so many emails, and then if somebody refers to you, it always is helpful. So do your research on that. And I think startups are, because thanks to all the accelerator, I think I am seeing so much of difference in the tech, which I used to see like 3 years back.
Yep.
So much of a difference, so much of studies they have done, and they know what to talk, what to pitch. So they come really prepared. Otherwise, the angel rounds were pretty hard 3-4 years back, right? But now I think everybody's trained, so much education available on YouTube. So yeah, so they're doing good job, and I think referrals would work. They can always reach out on LinkedIn, use your connects, do a research on investor. I think that helps a lot. I think they're doing good job.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shweta. And Stanley, this question is for you. Yours is a very specific accelerator or support system for a very specific set of industry. So
Yes.
how do you discover those kind of companies? Because the pool becomes smaller compared to other support programs. So how do you discover those winners for your programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the pool gets very significantly smaller, but at the same time, I see part of our main job is to grow that pool of energy and clean tech startups, right? Like we've already seen it when you have a very nascent startup ecosystem. Usually, the first ones to go to market are the marketplaces, the fintech platforms, and all of that. That stuff will organically, I think, grow within a country or within a startup ecosystem. Just because like there's so many hugely successful examples for people to look to as role models, right? But when you're talking about energy and clean tech, we're really diving into engineering specific universities. We're taking a look at maybe even energy companies, like what are they doing in terms of entrepreneurship, to supporting their managers to kind of think outside the box, right? And going like any kind of means necessary. We've also, in terms of scaling, like I heard like some of the speakers talked about how to support startups at scale, right? We also are trying to develop different online schools focused on energy curriculum. So all that one-on-one stuff they can learn online, and then they'll join our boot camps to do the ideation and really flesh out what the business models are. And then we also have this business model in a box where we have prepackaged like 20 or so proven business models in the clean energy sector. And, of course, you figure out how to customize that to your local country and context, but at least you have that model there to begin with and work with.
Awesome. And Johnson, in a way, you are leading the makers movement in Malaysia. So what's the current scene? What are the trends you are seeing? And what has been the impact of COVID in the makers movement?
All right. So basically for this particular topic, because we are, myself and all, we are community builders and maker spaces, right? So we are actually in a very early stage of whether this group of people becomes a startup or not, right? So it was the infancy stage of an idea. So because we open as an open door policy for everyone to come to us to, discuss and work things out, I tell you, we are actually on the ideation and validation stage of most of the things. And then one thing that we always have to do, okay, is actually, throw in the spanner and wake them up to the reality. Because a lot of these, founders and early stage startups, right, they tend to jump into like trends and what things that are cool before finding like a problem to solve. So for example, right, just a few years back when drones were the cool thing, you suddenly see an influx in everything drones, right? I'm going to do drone security and drone delivery and drone this and drone that. And I mean, in our space, we are the ones who have to like, okay, you know what, take a step back. Let's validate the idea first. How efficient is this? Why are you going to do this? What's the problem to be solved? And they kind of like, oh, actually, maybe there's no problem to be solved yet. They are getting into it because they are cool. And like Sita said, they came in with like very nice pitch decks, exactly like the Apple style and stuff like that. Like, oh, my drone solution can do this, and I needed X amount of money, and we can do this and that. But then number one, sometimes the technology wasn't even like available yet, because how can a drone carry, let's say 50 kilos and is this size and fly for 1 hour kind of thing. So it's not even validated yet. So we in a makerspace usually try to, bring them a few steps back. It's not just one step back. So let's look into the technology. Let's validate this first. Okay, connect them to people who are, well versed in that particular technology or the industry. Connect them to people who actually have problems that can be solved using these technologies, whether it's drone or not. And eventually, yes, from that onwards, then they have their validated data and gather up groups and teams to work together from the community. And then they take the next step to form, whether it's their team or their company to work on that particular problem or particular solutions or products.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Johnson. And Chris Peralta, the question is for you. So one of the things you will really teach well startups, part of your accelerator programs, about the business model. So what is your business model?
Well, our platform is actually a subscription platform, but the entry is $9.99 a month, and you get access to everything on the platform apart from mentoring. So the mentoring is an extra payment. So it's per hour, per minute, etc. And then we also have the other programs, which is subscription based as well. And then one-off fees. So the Investor Ready Bootcamp, which is on the 15th, it's 4 days. It's $47.
Okay.
US dollars, and that's a 4-day bootcamp. So there's a transactional and subscription model for the platform.
Yeah. And Monica, Wadwani Foundation runs a lot of programs. So how do you measure the impact of those programs? You can give an example of a very specific program, and what are the metrics that you really care for those programs?
So there are several, and I'll probably just mention the top couple of ones that we look at. So since we're a non-for-profit, really, and like I mentioned earlier, jobs is our eventual goal. We definitely measure jobs created. That's a very, very important metric for us. And we try, and through our alumni engagement programs, try and track our startups even beyond our programs, because very often jobs are created much after we've supported them. So we continue to support them even beyond the time that they're with us, to ensure that we can track jobs created over a period of time. So our impact team does that, and then we have external evaluations for that as well. The other large metric that we have is, the funding, right? So whether they're investor ready or not. And the other two is, revenue generation and increase in customer base. So those are the few metrics that we use. I mean, if we've done a good job, then the startup should be able to do better at that.
And Stanley, so in your case, at what stage you are in? Like, you already have startups, you empowered, or you are discovering the startups? And it's pretty much the same question. How do you measure the impact of your work?
Yeah, so we run a large number of programs. Like in each country, we have a national accelerator, which we hope a lot of these technology business incubators like TIP and the work that Wadwani Foundation does, when they have more successful startups coming out from the universities, then we'll put them into the national program. If startups are already doing some revenue and doing well, we'll help them scale. If they're very successful in country, we help them go international. So there's something for every stage of startup. And how we measure impact, like we have a full impact manager helping us to create that framework of measuring the programs and identifying which indicators we want to track beforehand, after, and following the startups to get their data for the next years, after they graduate from the program. So it is a process. It's a lot of work. But if we want to do that right and get those numbers, that's what we need to do.
Yep. And Shweta, you invested in 30-40 startups. Any one interesting story you want to share that and you discovered them through some sort of a program or some association?
Absolutely. Which one I would talk about? Association, yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of interesting ones. So one is in fintech. So a company which was like bootstrap, doing very, very interesting things from the platform point of view. And then I didn't even hear about them. I was doing I was doing my IIM fintech curriculum, and so I had like 100 people group, and we were meeting, working together. So one guy comes up and tells me that I have some interesting startup, maybe you will like it. And I said, okay, why not send the deck. He has not raised fund as yet. And I'm here reading about the Marketa, and which is a platform for a prepaid card, if you know the fintechs and all. So I said, why not meet him? So the founder drops me a message saying that I'm here in Singapore for a few days. Can I meet you? So why don't you send me a pitch deck? I looked at the pitch deck, and I realized that there were 3 to 4 startups which I had invested. Of that platform to exist for any other startups also to exist. So this was a startup which was creating a tech platform for anybody to create a prepaid card or any stored value card. And also there were so many neobanks in India which are using this platform. But they were running in bootstrap mode for 5 years. I looked at the name, I immediately Googled. I couldn't find much about it. The website was pretty okay. But I said, this is the Marketa of India. This looks really good. So luckily, I have people who know this industry much more than I would. So I immediately contacted. I said, the startup looks really interesting. Why don't we look at that? Do you think I should meet and, pitch, understand? So everybody said, yeah, looks good. I met the founder. And I must have invested amount of money in valuation, in the 10 times valuation in 2 years time. Wow. And 2 months time, he raised 2 rounds of funding, right? So very interesting, right? Sometimes just somewhere out of the blue, you just meet about a startup which actually become really big. And they never approach any angels, and it just happened to be me who then approached, and it worked. So yeah, pretty interesting one happens sometimes.
Awesome.
I was just going to ask a question to Shweta. What's the key criteria you look for when you're investing? Is it the team? Is it the industry? Is it the traction? Like, what's your key?
Yeah,
that you
so
look for?
of course the team plays very important role, and the industry. So I typically like to do investment in a sector or industry which I can relate and understand better. So it is because I'm from a technology platform, tech-enabled businesses, anything to do with tech. I understand, have worked with banking, so fintech, and now of course with so many years of investment experience, I expanded myself. But yeah, tech-enabled always helps me. I mean, is my bias towards tech and team. Yes, so just not the founder quality, but also sometimes the relationship you can bring with you have with the founder, right? Sometimes you feel that founder is everything, but you can just open up your network of connection, and that together they can become really big. And that's what happened in many cases, right? You just open up your network, be it your micro funds, institutional fund relationship, or it could be some very domain expertise which the founder is lacking and he just needs little bit help in that, or it could be anything else. But yeah, so I look at both the founder quality and the relationship together. What I can and we can bring together is something which I would obviously look for. And industry, yeah.
Yep.
Like a clean tech, I've never invested as yet, though I know it is good, but I really don't know how is the market.
So Stanley, you have one more potential investor to be onboarded.
Great, always a first, right?
So this is my favorite part. In a way, Chris started that, where we have panelists ask questions to each other. It helps us increase our question banks. So when I moderate the next event, I ask those good questions. So Stanley, Chris, you already asked the question, but any other question that you want to ask to other panelists? Or Johnson, you want to ask, because all these people can potentially help you in Malaysia. Or when you want to expand into their geographies.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I have tons of questions, so Stanley, please go.
Yeah, Chris and Monica, I guess like for those of you guys working with scaling these startup programs, because obviously it sounds like from your descriptions of your organizations you're trying to work with as many as possible, right? What do you see to be some of the trends that work well when you're trying to scale up the support? Because obviously with the lower touch program, then the interaction decreases, and therefore a lot of times the quality of the support decreases, right? So how do you maintain, and what's worked for you guys?
So should I go first?
Sure.
Yes, Monica.
So for us, I think, we're really scaling fast right now. And I think one of the things we've realized is that content is available out there, right? So content is an important piece of what we do, but there's a lot of content out there. It's just a matter of having curated content. So in our digitized programs, we've moved to anytime, anywhere learning, so that, we don't really need a coach or a facilitator to teach topics. I think that is something young founders of startups can very easily learn and digest themselves. We focused a lot more on, masterclasses and webinars, exactly like Chris was saying earlier, so that, we can get many more students with experts. And the experts don't have as much time, right? So to try and get as many under one roof, we try and use technology as much as possible. I think where we still want to be as personalized as possible is, again, like Chris was saying, the mentorship, because I think that can really change a lot of things for a startup. And some things are so unique to each startup that it's very hard to have generic mentorship. So the mentorship is where we still try and have as much of an individualized and personalized piece. And that's the touch piece that's hard when you scale, but we try and kind of use our networks to ensure that happens. And then we enable it through technology, so it's not face-to-face, but it still requires a lot of advisors and mentors to be onboarded in order to do that. So that's really our impediment to scale. But the rest of it, which is content and all the other 360, as we call it, the master classes and the pitch days, etc., that all happens online and through technology. So that helps us scale.
Great, nice.
Chris, you want to respond to?
Yeah. So my case is more personal. So in Silicon Valley, a lot of the programs is in the network. So they came to us. It was a lot of inbound. So now my platform is online, and I'm not a social media guru, and I'm building this ecosystem. At the end of the day, I think we're trying to, we have to make sure that there's value to everyone, not just the startup, even the mentors. We need to understand like the mentors' motivations. Some are there just to help and give back. Others actually need to pay the bills, like all of us, right? So that's why there's a fee. Now, our platform, we're not there to make money. We're there to build an ecosystem. So that's why the entry point is $10 per month, so that everyone can come into the ecosystem and get connected to other their peers, but also their mentors around the world that have been there, done that. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And then in order to make it, and again, we don't know the successful implementation here, but there is a structure, right? So with all the mentoring that I've done in the past, you can have an hour with a mentor, but if you're not ready for that mentoring session, it might not be valuable for you or the mentor, right? So what we do, the mentor can see all the templates that the startup, if they're ready for that mentoring session with them. So for instance, if I'm putting together my forecast for my investor, 5-year forecast, we have a template. And if they're requesting for mentorship with, say, Johnson, who is our financial mentor, and then Johnson looks at the request and says, oh, he hasn't completed, it's only a 1 year, or the business model's not correct. He can give feedback before the mentoring session, say, hey, can you fine tune your forecast before our mentoring session? So that's that structure that we want to build so that every engagement's valuable. Now, going back to your question on sustainability, I think it's having something for startups and founders because they don't have money that is, affordable based on their situation to get access to that support so that they can continue throughout their startup journey, like early stage, even later stage. We have some mentors that, that headed up AI for Snapchat. It's a good buddy of mine. Used to run the engineering there. So from an AI standpoint, he could support, some developers. So there's a different range of mentors, but they're all equal in the platform. They're all paid the same, but we need to make sure that everyone in the value chain is actually taken care of.
Right.
And I hopefully that is how we can make it sustainable.
Great.
Monica, Sweta, Johnson, you want to ask a question?
I think I have a question for Chris. So Chris, so do you choose a startup on certain criteria, Chris, for the mentorship?
Chris, you change your name. Chris from Philippines.
So do you choose a startup whom you want to take it in, or everybody is allowed, or how does that work? Because people who are specifically looking for mentorship.
Yeah, so for our platform, and we've only been around for 2 years, although I've been running programs for 7. It's open to anyone, early stage, growth stage, anyone that needs support, anyone that can find value in the platform. So we're not selective. There are some programs though, when we do have our pitch sessions, we only select 10. So when we run an investor ready program, we may have, say, 50 to 100 people join, but for the pitch to a panel of investors, we'll select the ones that are ready. So for the platform itself, it's for everyone, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to scale. I wanted to, and even mentors in Silicon Valley on the platform, they want to meet the amazing founders in India and Nigeria and all around the world, but they don't have that access, right? And so it's there for everyone. We're just trying to figure out how to structure it so it's valuable, because time's your most important asset, for the startup and also for the mentor, right? So we're trying to structure that. We don't have all the answers yet, but it is there for everyone. And I want to, and as also for partners, it's all about our partners in the regions as well. So it's not, we're just the background.
Okay. Abhishek Choksi has this question for Shweta. Do you see virtual hospital as a good industry to invest in? And your views on digital health. I'm just adding that part.
No, so I think digital health is, I mean, we've seen that, right, through COVID times and how it has accelerated the whole adoption of that. So yes, certain things, yes. In fact, I like how AI is being used through the questionnaire based and the AI based, and there's a Harvard study which actually came up with saying that 97% of those basic elements they could figure out through the algorithms. So yes, I believe in that. Hospital, so I don't know what the word hospital means here, but yes, the basic ones, it could be your allergic reaction, it could be a dermat, it could be, so there are certain type of areas within the medicine. I think I'm pretty bullish that, that is going to really become like, you wouldn't want to go to the doctor just if you have little fever, but you were still in a question mark. You would rather do a Zoom call with the doctor and ask. And I've used that in this year so much. And I think it has worked beautifully. Of course, platform can be much better. It could be much better. Doctors are not really that tech savvy at times. So things have to be smoother and all, but that's every industry goes through that. And there will be great founders who will figure that out, how to do it. But yes, I do believe in that, not necessarily a full virtual hospital thing, but yes, certain parts of the medicine, yes, I do believe, definitely.
Okay, we'll try to do a rapid fire. So you can give a 1 or 2 line quick answers to it. So Monica, in your startup support programs at Wadwani Foundation, which is the most impactful decision you took that kind of changed the trajectory or took things in a very different way?
So I think when I entered, we did not have evaluation of ventures, but we evaluated assignments. It was very grade centric. And I moved it to kind of, evaluation of ventures. So we're now tracking ventures as opposed to students graduated from our entrepreneurship programs. And I think that changed a lot of things for us.
Okay, Stanley, same question.
For us, originally we tried to work with different organizations and accelerators to co-create an energy program, but we quickly realized that being in a hardware-focused sector, a lot of the ventures are hardware-focused. They need manufacturing. The investors are very different, right? They would be either impact or clean tech or energy-focused investors is a very specific subset. Like normal VCs aren't usually interested in something that takes longer to go to market and more capital intensive. So the decision we made was to just hire our own people and do the programs ourselves. And we made that decision 3 years ago, and now we have offices in like 10 countries, but in Southeast Asia, it's Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and it's been going quite well since then. So yeah, like that was one of the key turning points for us.
Yep. And Chris Peralta, Chris, yes.
I think one is instead of thinking too big, like globally, focus locally. Like be the expert locally. A lot of startups that I encounter want to go to Silicon Valley to grow, tap into everything, but they're not ready. So, they can be a matter expert locally in their region, their country first, and then once they have that, investors will come, your global opportunities will come, but there's partners in global markets that you can support. Also, sorry, I know you only want to rapid fire, but yesterday I was talking to a startup at Antler, and they're raising money. They just closed 250, and then they were raising more money. I'm like, you don't need me. You've got an ecosystem that you're in right now that you should leverage. Like it's at your fingertips. Just pound the pavement in that ecosystem. Get as much value as you can from that ecosystem. You're already in there. So then later on figure out what extra support you need, but you have access to a network, within that ecosystem to achieve your, to close this round, right? So I think the focus, people have it, startups have it right in front of them. So I think the focus on what's in front of them, maximize those opportunities, I think is key.
Okay, awesome. Johnson, which was the most impactful decision for you for Kaki DY?
Yeah. So for our side, right? So sometimes we don't need to confine ourselves to what we do just because we are doing that in that space and doing that well, right? One very, very good example was this whole group of people trying to build a new solutions using drone for the solar company, right? So we are talking about like, okay, let's build this new type of drone. Let's do, we can do solar power, solar panel cleaning and stuff like that, right? Because we are builders, right? So we keep on jumping into wanting to build things and to create and innovate, right? But then that particular decision that I took was we take a step back and look at it and realize that we actually don't need another type of drone. We don't need another type of new cool product, right? The things that is missing is actually a platform to provide these drone services to these companies. So we actually took a step back. Instead of like having to plan 6 months or 8 months to build a new product, a new drone, we actually just took 3 weeks and we built a platform to connect drone owners, which a minimum amount, a minimum specification of drone, and connect them to clients who needed drone services to survey, rooftop for solar panel installation, to check their solar panel quality, using IR and stuff like that. And boom, that's a new problem solved and the new solutions out there. Yeah.
Wow.
So sometimes, yeah, we laugh to ourselves. It's just like the Taylor Swift song, right? Shake It Off. Yeah, you don't need to, just because you are good in this and you are a builder and a maker, you have to make something. No, because end of the day, solutions can come in different forms.
Yep. And Shweta, which was the most impactful decision in your angel investing career?
I mean, I would want to believe that most because I just feel that you help founders realize their dream, and as Monica rightly put it, the job creation and the whole entrepreneurship. Because typically, if one founder gets funding, then a lot many more have more hopes, right? That I will also get funding, and people will be supportive of me, so they try out things. So yeah, I think just the whole helping the ecosystem would be the most impactful thing. I would want to believe that way.
Okay. So we have 9 minutes left, and I want to do 2 more rounds of this. So, Shweta, which is your most favorite book or a podcast that you would want to recommend other founders also?
Okay, from the podcast, I mean, a lot of these. The novel is really good. Novel from Angel List, Tim Ferriss show. Um, I like, of course, A16Z, and yeah, some of the book-wise, many. But this a very different book which I read in this pandemic was Born to Run. And it was very different than all the business books typically you would read, but it's such an amazing book about how a certain kind of you should just look it up on that book.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting one.
Johnson, your favorite book or a podcast?
My favorite book would be what's that thing called again? Business Model Canvas.
Let's
Yeah.
stick to the basics.
Yeah, because really in our space, a lot of people really need to open up, flip up that book and understand it before
Okay.
jumping into stuff, right?
Yes. So Eric Rice, Lean Startup is a very important one if you're just starting up. Chris, your favorite book or a podcast that you would want to recommend?
I love this. Pivot.
Same here. Actually, I love that.
Do you see that?
Yes.
So Pivot, Karis Scott Galloway.
Yep. And his Twitter account is also pretty interesting one. Stanley, which book or a podcast you would want to recommend?
Yeah, for my sector, we like to go with Green Tech Media. They have an energy gang which does a podcast talking about the latest clean tech and energy trends, innovations. And then also more so in Southeast Asia, Eco Business has been writing a lot of great content about the energy transition and different trends within this space as well. So,
Okay.
two great sources.
And Monica, your favorite book or a podcast?
I've enjoyed 0 to 1. It's a book by Blake Master. A lot about the future and the future of startups. I particularly enjoyed that very much.
Okay. And So we'll do one more round and then we'll end with the final questions that we asked. Shweta, so you are an angel investor, you invest in startups, and now there are a lot of startup support programs. So for you, what could be your top 2-3 recommendations for the folks who are building support programs to help startups?
So one is, I think at times many of the startups come back to you, and I mean, I really don't know the business model. I mean, I don't know if they're good, but they come back and say that sometimes the accelerator takes a lot of equity in early stage, and that founder becomes very uncomfortable, and hence they don't join it, and they still shop around and all. So I don't know if there could be a bracket wise or some slab wise kind of a option there, where startup can also benefit a bit, because I've seen there are times where they just shop around just because they feel that, I don't want to give 10% or 20% equity, and I know my startup is good, but I still need help. So I think that could be this. And I think most of the accelerators are doing really good jobs. So I think when they come out of the accelerator, they have learned a lot of things. So I think apart from that, I don't really have much comments on that.
Okay. And Johnson, what is your long shot with Kaki DIY? Like you are in Malaysia, you'll take it to Southeast Asia or then the entire world. What's your long shot with that?
Well, in this particular space, although we are very, very new still, right? So of course, yeah, I travel a lot. So over in ASEAN countries. And what we do is actually we connect with the local communities and we collaborate on this part. And we tend to share ideas around and also share how, makers move over to become a startup, right? So end of the day, we came into conclusion, all of us is number one, don't jump into the trend just because, this particular technology is cool. You wanted to build something out of that coolness kind of thing. And second is actually, I think it's quite important to anyone, whether it's tech startup or whatever, it's try to bootstrap as much as you can first before thinking like, oh, I'm going to pitch for X amount of dollars, because again, this is cool and it's going to work and kind of thing. Just bootstrap it, run your own prototype, validate, test it out first, and then you work on your whole plan and go to the next step. Yeah.
And Chris, Stanley and Monica, in a way you run startup programs, different kinds, but COVID happened, everything moved digital. And now people are trying to figure out whether they will do a hybrid model. So what next for you next 6 months, a year down the line? Chris.
Yeah, I've been here locked down for the last 6 months. So I'm not going to Silicon Valley, but everything's online. I started it 2 years ago. So, the good thing is that I've been working with these mentors for 7 years, the 150 mentors. So they're all friends and, people I know. So I don't have to establish new relationships. So I think that's the key with our platform, is that we have established relationships already. So we're operational. I think it'd be very difficult if you had to, establish new relationships, because it's very personal, right? So everything, correct. Raising money, you just have to you have to be in front of an investor. They will need to feel your passion. They need to feel, your startup and your journey, and you as a founder. It's hard to. I don't know how people raise money just from Zoom calls. So yeah, I think for us, we've always been on, our plan was always to be online. And so we're quite lucky.
We have 2 minutes left. So Stanley and Monica, just give one-line answers to it.
Yeah, just really quick. Right now we're in 10 countries, supporting about 200 ventures a year. By 2030, we hope to be in 50 countries and supporting in a total up to 100,000 ventures. So awesome. Make sure that anyone wants to start an energy company and a clean energy company, we're there to support.
Brilliant. Monica, one-line answer.
By 2022, 50,000 students and about 15,000 ventures. That's what you want to be supported.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. The last part. So typically, we have some anchor question, so ending these Zoom calls is very tricky. So what we do is that we ask this question, and the moment the last person answers that question, we end the call immediately after that. So we end on a high. So Shweta, we will end with you. So Monica, if you were to get a superpower to be able to do your job better, what that superpower you would want to have?
Wow. I would want to fund a lot more startups. we're non-for-profit and we can't do that. I see some amazing startups. And so if I have the superpower, I'd really want to fund a lot of them.
Awesome. So that has been assigned to her. So nobody else will get that. You have to find a new one. Stanley, what superpower you will need to do your job better?
I would like to be able to just travel into space so I can explore, other areas where we can set up and build habitats.
Wow. Chris?
I just need more time. I think focus is really key. I lack focus.
Okay.
I do a lot of things. So I think I wish I had a superpower that I could focus.
Johnson, we are towards the last minute only. So just one word. What superpower you need?
Chris stole my answer.
Chris, give some time to him also. Time is unlimited.
Yeah, it's okay. The second one I can is I would like to duplicate myself, because since we cannot have more time, if there's more of me, I can do more stuff, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Shweta, the moment you say that word, I'll close this call.
No, I'm just saying that to slip through all the decks much faster.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. We have published all this video and on LinkedIn speakers are tags.